Howdy, this is Mackenzie Franklin from SideGame LLC here in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Today we're going to be reorganizing Dune Imperium, designed by Paul Dennen and published by Direwolf and Legendary. This is a fully sleeved copy of the game that includes the Rise of Ix expansion, as well as utilizes the Deluxe Upgrade Pack here. It has no lid lift and is organized in order to get gameplay started as soon as possible. If you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please make sure that you do. It is the best way to help us grow. Let's get started with reorganizing Dune Imperium. First off, we lift the lid here, and inside you'll see that we have all of the different rulebooks for the game on top. First, the base game rulebook, the Rise of Ix rulebook, as well as the different player aids here for the different board spaces and your solo and two-player mode. Underneath that, we have the base game board, and then we have a spot that's perfectly indented to hold not only the new tech board, as well as the new space for the Landstrat Council, as well as it folds out for the new Chome area. So that's going to fit into this nice recessed portion here. We'll then remove this plastic container, and inside you'll see that we have all of the player components. Each faction is going to have a variety of components in their bin, starting with your 4 influence markers. These will be those squares from the base game, but those are the only 4 you're going to need, because the rest of the cubes are replaced by these soldier miniatures. You're also going to have your control markers, as well as your combat markers, and then your new dreadnought pieces, as well as 3 of these large round disc pieces, now that you have the expansion. So you'll put all of those for each player in the wells that match the colors, with red, then yellow, then green, and then blue. You'll have this large metal medallion here in the center, and then each of the factions will have bases that you'll affix to them. They just puck on like so, and you'll actually leave them on here so that you don't need to re-affix them every time you play. On this bottom section, you'll have all of your alliance markers. You'll no longer need the cardboard ones, but we'll have a space later in the insert where you can store them just in case you decide that these miniatures are too much for you. But we've got the Spacing Guild here. We've got the Bene Gesserit right here. Very, very cool. And then our Fremen. The last piece here is going to be your Mentat, and he'll replace your wooden piece that comes in the base game. You'll put him down here in the bottom left. So that's all of the player components here. Let's take this tray out. Underneath the player components, we have 3 distinct sections. Let's first take a look at this one in the bottom right. We have all of the different character cards here, and we'll lift off this lid, which forms that nice sandworm icon on top, and we'll lift out all of these cards. Now, we do sleeve the cards using the Sleeve Kings, the super large card sleeves. I'll leave a link in the description below so you can get sleeves for the game. They do run a little bit long, so you're going to need to trim them down a little bit, but otherwise they fit nice and snug. They're going to keep all of your components nice and safe. You'll also have these 2 new reference cards that are going to come with the Rise of Ix expansion, but otherwise the characters will fit in nicely with the rest of the base game characters. So you'll organize them all here, and they'll go into this large tray on the bottom right. We'll remove this tray, and underneath you'll see that we have all of the resources in the game. This is going to contain all of your water, all of your Solari, all of your spice, and then your 5s, 4s, Solari, and spice, and give 1 water to each player to start the game. The top section here is where we're going to store the majority of the cards. First off, we have on this far right, we have all of your Intrigue cards. So you're going to shuffle those up and place them near the center of the table. For the small cards, we use mini European board game size. We use the Game Plus products. I really like the way these fit, and I'll leave a link in the description below for some mini European board game size sleeves that you can use. To the right of the cards, we have all of our technology tiles. Make sure to shuffle these up. These are going to be special abilities that you get from that new Rise of Ix expansion. To the right of the tech tiles, we have some leader-specific tiles, including the Snooper tokens, as well as the Baron Harkonnen tokens. Based on if you're playing with those specific leaders, you will use those tokens. Otherwise, you can leave them in the box. In this middle section here, you have all of your Imperium cards. So these are just all of the cards that are available for purchase. You'll shuffle this large stack and then place them in that center row, leaving some cards face up to make the Imperium row. The left side of the organizer holds the remainder of the cards you'll be playing with, including your conflict cards, level 1s, 2s, and 3s. These use the same size sleeves as the Intrigue cards. And then you'll have all of your starting decks. Now, we keep our starting decks here. You just put them back in front. They've got that little marker in the corner here to indicate that they're starting cards. But we put them into this main organizer here because, unfortunately, this bottom one here, when you put the cards in, the corners are going to get bent because the wells are a bit too small to accommodate these Spice Must Flow sleeves. So unfortunately, they do not fit quite as snug in here, so we do keep them in this upper left section. Speaking of the Spice Must Flow sleeves, underneath this top organizer, we're going to have additional sleeves for the game. This is our extra pack. You'll have quite a few sleeves left if you do get the extra pack to fit all the Rise of Ix cards. But we'll also have some of the smaller sleeves in here too, in case we have any rips during gameplay. So it goes nice and sneakily under this organizer here, and you'll always have them in case something does happen. And that brings us to our last section. In this bottom left corner, we have a lot of the components that you will use rarely, but they are important to have. Now the first one here, we'll lift off the lid and you'll see that we have all of the components that have been replaced by those new upgrades. So first off, we have all of those agent markers and the cubes that have been replaced from the warrior miniatures, and then we have the wooden Mentat that just lies in here. So they're all going to have their own indicated space. In addition, we have all of our House Hagal cards. These are sleeved with the Ultra Pro, Pro Mat, Standard, clear deck protectors. I really like the way these shuffle, and they're clear, so you can clearly identify which of the cards are the House Hagal. You'll have the solo mode as well as the 2-player mode cards in here, and you'll pull them out when required. Underneath that, you have a couple of silica gel packets for freshness, as well as all of your cardboard markers for the alliances and for the first player. But as I said before, you're not going to really need anything in this container, and unfortunately, those starting decks do get damaged by those corners here. It's a little bit too tight, and it is going to damage your cards. So I do not recommend using this to store those starting decks, and hey, now you pretty much never need to go in this in 3 or 4 player games, which is a pretty great feature. So you'll toss all those tokens back in there, and then we'll have that snugly in that bottom left corner. And that is everything. Let's go ahead and pack it up. So first off, we'll start with that bottom left corner. We have all of our alliance tokens in there, all our player pieces. We'll put the House Hagal cards on top in this bottom left section. And then we'll place the lid on top so that the ring is making your worm symbol here. We'll then place our extra sleeves in this upper right section with our large card tray on top. We'll then take our starting cards, our always available cards in the form of the Spice Must Flow, Arrakis Liaison, and the Fold Space cards, as well as our conflict cards, and put them into the upper left section of this large organizer. We'll take all of our cards to the Imperium row and put them in the center of the large organizer. We'll then take the tech tiles, as well as the Intrigue cards, and put them into those top slots. And lastly, in that top section, we'll put those Baron Harkonnen tokens, as well as those Snooper tokens. And we'll continue the trend with forming that symbol for the giant sandworm. We'll then place our resource container in that bottom right section, followed by the tray for the character cards, and then the character cards themselves. And we'll complete the giant sandworm mural. We'll then put all of the player components on top, the plastic covering, and then we'll fill in that indented area with the new boards. We'll then place the main game board on top, and lastly, our references and rulebooks. And that is reorganizing Dune Imperium using the Deluxe Upgrade Pack and including the Rise of Ix. How do you organize your copy of Dune Imperium? What do you think of the Deluxe Upgrade Pack? Are you enjoying the Rise of Ix? Who is your favorite new character? We'd love to hear what you think. But thank you so much for watching SideGame Strong.